Good morning, everybody. John Sfiocla here from GAI Insights, bringing you the GenAI News Briefing. Rating the top GenAI news as essential, important, or optional to save you time and to give us some fun and stand up to date here. I'm delighted to have Michael Novak, an expert in our area and a frequent guest, to our stage here today to be a guest reader. How are you doing today, Michael?
Good. Thank you, John.
And of course, we have Ankaj, as always. We have a lot of interesting stuff today. We've got some big new news on hardware, some on software. It's kind of a wacky conversation on X about the FOMO CapEx done by the big guys. Is it FOMO or is the analysis wrong? We're going to delve into all that. Here we go. So, Ankash, start us off with the wonderful folks at Anthropic.
Sure. Thanks, John. So the first one that we have for today comes from Anthropic. So recently we discussed the artifacts feature on Claude, and now we have a new feature called projects.
Yes. Well, I let me dive in on this one. Then, Michael, we have a discussion on this. On this one, I was on the fence between important and essential. I think Claude is, this idea of chunking up knowledge into little knowledge packs, if you will, and then being able to share those and share, the thinking environment. It's kind of reinvention of the Office suite, if you will. If you think back to Lotus Notes and the Office suites, and now we have Slack and so forth. That I think that this notion of being able to pick up, if you will, the kind of like knowledge subroutines, if we're to use old style language on it, and to bring it into the environment and be able to share the work as you go along. I think it's pretty powerful, especially with such a great model as Claude. I mean, I really like Claude 3.5. I was using it the other day, taking images. I took an image of a brand positioning statement and and so forth, stuffed it in as an image, said, can you make something like this? And it's just fantastic. So I'd give this an important, but I'm on the borderline with essential. What do you think, Michael?
Yeah, no, I would agree. I think this is important. I've used other knowledge management systems. There's one out there called Obsidian that's open source, and it's the concept of how do I capture information in a markup language, in the markup language.
Yes.
And now with the advent of ChatGPT and generative AI, there have been some tools that have been added to it. So I can now look at my knowledge and extract information using simple lookups, et cetera, and form relationships. You can do mind maps. So when I saw this story, it's like, oh yeah, this is a good step for Claude because I can see its utility for this type of data where you and I have virtual file boxes of information that we have to share amongst each other.
Yes.
Let's use generative AI to help create something beneficial out of that together electronically. So definitely important.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because if you go back to Doug Engelbart, the person who invented the mouse and the augmented knowledge workshop, and Alan Kay, the inventor of object-oriented programming, said Doug Engelbart is to personal computing what Newton was to physics. He's that central. And then Alan also said it's also a statement that nobody knows that. It's another statement about the field. But anyway, Engelbart had a notion of how do you get people to collectively do more, have a higher IQ, doing complex, interdependent, urgent work, and his unit of analysis was a thing he called HLAMT, which is a human being with an artifact, a language system, a method, and training. So that was the minimum unit that you analyzed, and we're kind of reinventing this stuff. And anyway, if you go back and look at his thing on YouTube, the mother of all demos in 1968, he previews a lot of these things. But what's super important, I think, is his unit of analysis was complex, interdependent work with humans, artifacts, language systems, training, and a method. And so I think we're getting there with this kind of intelligence. Anyway, all right, it's going as. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say just real quick on that point. What do you think about OneNote? Do you think there's going to be a repositioning of Copilot to be like, yeah, we do this too?
Yes, I think that we're going to see all kinds of competing integration layers. I was talking to a brilliant young man who the son of a friend of mine. His name's Ricky Peregrini, and he has a company called Node, KNODE.ai, that does a great job of integrating, Slack and your Google Drive and so forth. So I think we're going to have competing integration layers that are going to be, feeding the unstructured and semi-structured data. I mean, that's where I think we are. We've done a lot with structured data. We spend a lot of money creating data to be more structured. When you think about database design and so forth, when you go to third normal form, let's not embed anything else in there, and the language models are exactly the opposite. Let's embed everything in there, right? Let's have thousands of dimensions combined with the data. So, we've gone very much the other way, which I think makes a lot of sense. If you think we're going from mechanistic to biological, which I think we are in terms of the right analogy, biology is much more redundant and has much more embedded function with data. And so I think we're starting to get there. All right. Ankash, this is a big, important, but not essential. Didn't make it over the E hump. We can have the next one, please.
Yeah. So next one is regarding a new chip, especially for transformers. So Edge is a company which is making this big bet with the new chips.
Yes, Ankash, if you could scroll down to some of the performance graphs, that would be great. A little farther down. Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. Keep going. A little more, a little more, a little more. Go, go, go. There, stop, right there. Oh, back there, right there. Perfect. All right, Michael, what do you think?
Yeah, so as Ankash mentioned, this is a novel way to approach processing. What Etched is doing is actually building a transformer in the chip, and I would probably still call this optional because it is technical, like beyond decision maker technical. This would be good CTO or again someone who has a technical background even know what an ASIC chip is. But the speed they're talking about, I took a note here: 500K tokens per second on a 7 dB model.
Yep.
That's huge.
Yeah.
So encouraging, you need to be aware of it, but probably still just optional, even showing, this graph where how much faster it is. And definitely, I think this is a pitch to provide some competition to NVIDIA's Blackwell announcement.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, I'm going to make the case for important, almost essential here, Michael, because first of all, anybody who's running AI who doesn't know what an ASIC is, I think I would fire. Out you go. As Elon Musk said the other day with the Boeing problem, now they're stranding astronauts in space, and he said, "Look, let's have an engineer on top of Boeing." But there's a lot of things I disagree with Elon Musk about, but that I agree with. Anyway, no, I think that this is an alternative architecture, and this goes back to the early days of personal computing for sure, and mainframe and so forth. People were so unaccustomed to going down into the metal or the sand, depending upon how you think about silicon, right? The early the Alto and then the Star, which were the inspiration for the Lisa and then the Mac, right? The Lisa and Mac built on the Motorola chip, if I remember right. I think it's a 68,000, and the the Lisa, the Star and the Alto were Lisp in the silicon. They went all the way down the silicon, and again, Alan Kay would say to you, if you're going to get serious, you got to get down into the hardware because you're going to want the performance. So I think this is important. I'm delighted to see that as an industry, we're starting to go back into the metal because we're going to have some real innovation there. And so I would give this important for sure. Certainly happy to see. Look, I have a lot of, joy in the boldness of NVIDIA, but thank goodness there's a competitor, starting to come there. At least you can start to grab some of those compute cycles, because I think NVIDIA is crushing it when you look at their announcement. Because if you look at the Blackwell announcement, not only did they is it backward compatible with our friends at Grace Hopper, right? The Grace Hopper chip, the Hopper chip. But in addition, they're building vertical, knowledge bases, right? And they're partnering with big people, ServiceNow, Siemens, and so forth. And those big companies are opening up to work with them on creating specialized models vertically integrated. And that's going to create huge lock-in. And so I'm good to see, nice to see somebody starting to break that. And I don't see OpenAI with that kind of strength and so forth. I was talking to a friend of mine who was a senior person at Verizon, and he said 2.5, 3 years ago, he got calls from NVIDIA saying, hey, how about we build a vertical stack together? So they've been on this for a while. Jensen's really on it. Competition is a beautiful thing. Important.
However, keep in mind, though, this is still a press announcement from the company about their product.
Fair enough. Absolutely, all those things.
So again, that's why
it's
nice to know, but this is not third-party competitive.
Yes, but remember, important is still voluntary. You don't have to read it, but you should make time to read it. And I think you should make time to read this. All right.
All right. Short enough. That's pictures.
What is with our, degradation, our low expectations of all the billionaires I interviewed? Okay, I did a book on.
They're very busy people.
They read like crazy. Okay, they read. Reading is still the fastest way to get smart. Okay, next.
Okay, so the next one is a new model ESM3, which is a biology-oriented model from a company called Evolutionary Scale, and they have raised a lot of money yesterday.
Yes. Well, I was looking at this thing, and first of all, this is just mind blowing. The idea that you'll be able to design proteins, and the fundamental thing here that one of my thesis advisors was a guy named Patrick Henry Winston III, one of the all-time great names, right? And he was related to Patrick Henry. Patrick Henry, who famously said, the only reason that we're not dealing with slavery is because of our avarice and our laziness. Anyway, so they were mindful of who they were cutting out of things back then. But anyway, Pat said to me, Dr. Winston, Professor Winston, once said to me, hey, a lot of people, AI, and he was head of the AI lab at MIT at the time. He said, a lot of people look at AI and say, can we have better algorithms and so forth? And those are the advances. That's super important. He said, but the other really important part, often some of the biggest breakthroughs are extensions in representation, not just analysis. And in here, if you look at what they're doing here, they're going from across three. If you scroll down, Ankash, there's, they're going from, descriptions of the chemistry to descriptions of the genome to the proteins. And so that, here we go. Sequence, structure, function. Yeah. And so, this is incredibly powerful. And who knows what we're going to find when we have a, n-dimensional matrix of semantics that can munch down across these different representation structures. I think this is super, super powerful, and everybody's worried about AGI and all that stuff. I think the whole artificial general intelligence conversation is silly the way they're doing it. But this I would worry about if I can do designer life, because for me the difference is life can harvest energy from its environment and replicate itself. That's not true of AI right now, and that's where I think the danger is when you start having things that can autonomously replicate while harvesting energy, that's the dangerous stuff. AGI, forget it. I mean, you still got a plug. Anyway, what do you think, Michael? Oh, I was going to give this important, huh?
Yeah, so I'm on the border of important and optional, again, because it is specific to this one niche, and we come back to this niche regularly on, what's going on in this healthcare sector, this specific sector.
Wow.
But I was thinking as I read this, we should put them in touch with the etched people, because they've got the chip. What if I could take this and put it on a chip?
Sure.
Yeah, I talked to my biology and my scientific friends that are working in different flavors of biology, And they are rightly very pessimistic about what they read and what they see because, yes, good idea. And, like in this case, simulating 500 million years of evolution,
Yes.
that's makes me pause to consider more harshly what I read after that.
Yeah, it's total baloney. But yes,
Because
I mean,
you can't
it's
prove
hype.
it. Prove I'm wrong.
It's hype.
Okay.
It's just one representation. Look, how many dimensions of reality are there? And this is one thin, I mean, what are the quantum effects of biology? We're only beginning that, right? I mean, so yeah. It's anthropomorphic inside our symbolic use of this, inside a manipulation of that symbol system. That in no way is reality. I mean, it's not just Plato's cave. It's the cave inside the cave inside the cave, right? I mean, you're 3 caves deep here, so
True.
but
So that's why I border between optional, maybe important if you're in the industry.
yeah, it's just so cool and so bold. I mean,
Agreed.
it's just, and again, important, not essential. Dr. Julie Alig in the chat asks, are there other folks doing this? I don't know if there are other folks doing it, Julie. I don't know if you know, Michael, if there are other folks doing it at this scale.
I don't know of any specifically, but I know there are companies working in this realm to produce something similar, but maybe not as, one for one match.
Yeah, I think I happen to think there's certain areas that we really ought to be watching if you're an AI leader, and for different things. And so for deep fakes and all that other stuff, I think you should watch politics and intelligence, right? That's going to be the bleeding edge of that stuff. I think for new discoveries in complex, high value added spaces, I would watch biopharma and pharma because they have billions of dollars to spend. Mike Porter and Cynthia Montgomery many years ago did a long 25-year study on who are the companies that had the highest return on invested capital over a sustained period of time. And right at the top of the list was pharmaceuticals because they have, I would say, because they can put a lot of knowledge into their product, and then they have legal ways to extract that knowledge at a high price, and and also the primary demand for certain solutions is going to be completely price inelastic. People will pay anything. How much will you pay for another day on Earth? And with the wealth disparity, you're going to have. You already have drugs like Hemgenics, which cost $3.5 million to cure, to cure your hemophilia, which over the life of a hemophiliac is actually cheaper, but still $3.5 million. My son has got MS. He takes a drug that's $135,000 a dose. So I think that biopharma is going to have the dough to invest in this stuff, and we're going to see really interesting breakthroughs. So for expansion
Just real
of
quick,
knowledge,
John, if I may,
yeah,
on your first sector that you brought up, the deep fakes, you brought up,
yes,
was it politics and
the intelligence agencies, yeah,
intelligence? So I would disagree on that
interesting.
categorically. For
Okay,
deep fakes,
yeah,
it's pornography.
okay, fair enough.
I
Yeah,
mean, as you may know, they've led a
yep,
lot of technological innovations from VHS tapes to the web, et cetera.
yes. No, I think that makes a ton of sense. You're right. Yes, it's porno. So we shall see. All right. I would say porno for engagement and decision making, and for decision making politics. How about that? All right. Next, Akash, we're going to put this as important. Get the big eye. All right.
Agreed.
Dante
Yeah.
Genomics.
Yes. So the next one comes from Dante Genomics. So they have launched Genome Chat, which aims to become doctors and patients' best friend.
All right. What do you think of this here, Michael?
Yeah. So, for those of us that were in grade school, you may remember this, John, that genomics is the haven't had my coffee yet.
Interdisciplinary.
Interdisciplinary, there you go, study of structure, function, evolution, mapping, and editing of DNA. That's all, just that little bit. So very complex, hard to do sector of the world. And what they're proposing here is this genome chat. Again, a industry specific, and I'd say not even industry, but a functioning specific I'm working in genomics. I want to have a chat bot. Let me talk to it. And if you could scroll down, and gosh, there's a couple, oh, there it is in the middle, that little square. If you click on it, it'll hopefully blow up and show you this is what the chat would look like. There you go. You can't read it, but the idea is the blue, I query it. The gray is its response.
Yep.
So again, I can see this being very useful if I'm in that field because it reduces my workflow friction. It's that productivity. How long does it take me to look this stuff up or remember or resource it? I can ask and use my voice much faster.
Yep.
However, number one, this is still new. And again, they presented this at a Amazon workshop, so I'm assuming it's going to run on Amazon Love and Caring and everything else.
Yep.
The one thing they did not address are still some of the issues we're currently aware of, like hallucinations. It doesn't address what if it comes back and says, yes, to cure cancer, drink clear water, or your genome has the letter Q in it, you're a good guy. So again, I take this definitely with a grain of salt.
All righty. Yeah, I'm with you on this one. Let's put this baby optional. It's also short. It's product announcement, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't really have a lot of data in there. Optional it is. Ankash, next.
Next one that we have is a research paper which talks about LLM-driven synthetic data generation, curation, and evaluation.
Yes, I think the most interesting part here is the fact that we have such prolific publishing by Chinese authors. These folks are not the Chinese authors. Yesterday were at the University of Waterloo, and here they're still in China. But it's interesting. There's a lot of emphasis on frameworks. I gave this an optional. This is a framework for thinking about synthetic data, how to manage it, how to improve it, how to use it, and so forth. And it's a meta analysis of other things, which are kind of fun. It's kind of the cliff notes of research, if you will. But I thought it was definitely optional. But I think it. A lot of people are talking about the new Cold War. And between China and the U.S., and I think that's absolutely true. And AI, I think, is one of those areas that's just at the very bleeding edge of where that Cold War is. Also, space war and so forth. I think the Chinese, in terms of anti-satellite weapons and stuff, get pretty interesting, as well as quantum space stuff. But drones, AI, and space, I think, are going to be really big parts of the next phase of the military-industrial complex, which is going to drive a tremendous amount of demand for AI, because as we distribute intelligence, it's going to be a vital part of warfare. But anyway, so optional for this. What do you think, Michael?
Yeah, no, I would agree. Again, as you mentioned, it is a survey of, so that's a nice thing to know about, but optional.
Optional. All right.
Nothing struck me as, wow, that's cool.
The big O. All right. Ankash, last. We have an interesting kind of back and forth on X here. Go for it.
Yes. So the last one talks about a Barclays report, which puts $167 billion in cumulative AI capex, and talks about how big players will be faring going forward.
All right, Michael, what do you say?
Yeah, this is it's an interesting thread. This is, of course, on our friend Twitter X by Modest Proposal. And it's an interesting thread because it talks about this AI CapEx, capital expenditures, what's going on. And in it, it says that by 2026, 12,000 chat GPTs worth of CapEx will be spent. Okay. But it doesn't give any evidence. It doesn't provide any support, any, primary sources. So it's hard to scale. Is that too much, too little? And if so, it says, is there enough usage to support that investment?
Mm-hmm.
Again, predicting the future is awful hard. That's why we try to do it and never succeed, because would you have guessed even 6 months ago where we are today with the state of AI? It's So of modest interest, optional. It's certainly, perhaps from a different perspective, talking about AI CapEx. I know some of my fintech folk are going to be all over this,
Right.
and my VC friends will be all over this just because they want to stay on top of it. But so
I give it an optional as well. I'm kind of suspect the thinking behind it. If you take the 167 billion in capex between now and 2029, that they say, it's that the analysts are saying that the big guys, the cloudalists, as Yanis Varoufakis calls them, are going to invest. And you divide it by the 12,000, you get 13 million bucks, 14 million bucks. I don't understand, why that's equivalent to a chat GPT. I mean, I think that's less than a month operating cost. So whatever. So I'm a little suspect there. But a really interesting question about, is it going to be an overbuild? There's a fantastic book by a guy named Alistair Nairn, called Engines That Move Markets. And he was at the Scottish Widows Fund, massive, pension fund. And he was basically trying to explain to his management, why he missed the internet boom, right? And that's my interpretation of it. But Sandy is very articulate about the overinvestment in any new, whether it's railroads or, I'm not just talking about the tulip bulb, which is just a wild speculation, kind of like crypto. This is real investments, like canals, railroads, telegraph, right? So, and you see an overinvestment. It's like the old adage, the third about hotels, the third owner makes the money, right? Not the person who buys it, the third owner makes the money. I don't think that's true here. And I'll tell you why I don't think that's true here for two reasons. One, I think, is that most of the value added in the economy has to do with the application of intelligence. And now we're starting to automate intelligence. And so the capital substitution for labor in the context of that is massive. Okay. And the second thing is that that I think that we are going to see, as we begin to inductively create intelligence and deductively put intelligence into stuff and everything, the adding of the intelligence layer is going to absorb all kinds of processing power, like unbelievably so. And we're going to have primary demand for intelligence like we've never seen for simple digitization. So I don't buy either things. In addition, the cloudalists, the big companies, like, just to give you an idea, Microsoft pumps out 158 in 2023. They pumped out 158 billion dollars in EBITDA. They can spend $2 billion a week and they're fine, and never mind the fact that's increased their market capitalization, which more than pays for it. And you can grab that, you can grab that by, debt. You can grab it through stock issuance. I mean, the funding available to Microsoft is almost infinite. So I think this is totally wrong-headed, optional.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, I would be cautious on how you use the word intelligence, because I still don't equate our AI tools today with intelligence.
Let's call it machine
but
intelligence.
nonetheless,
I mean,
yes, I know.
it's
Yes,
like thinking.
yes.
I mean,
That's the term we use.
Yeah, and I'm fine. Look, and by the way, intelligence to me is not human thinking, nor is it anywhere near consciousness. Okay, so to me, intelligence is the ability to observe, semantically enhance, react to, and give output from a situation. Right. So, that's not, it has nothing to do with consciousness. These knuckleheads who say these machines are conscious, they're, in the words of the Dalai Lama, they're extreme materialists, right? There's no scientific evidence that they have anything to do with consciousness. Now, do they think? Sure, I think they think. They think the way a plane flies. Right. A plane doesn't fly like a bird. I mean, there are things that say, some people think that part of the navigation capability of birds, like Arctic terns, have to do with quantum effects that we don't understand. What the hell? I mean, we have no idea how they do that stuff, right? But does a plane get you from, Antarctica to the North Pole? Sure. Can machines think? Yeah, the way that planes fly. Anyway, so yeah, no, it's I hear you, and I need to be careful with that, Michael. But man, there's going to be so much demand for this stuff. Who's going to want a product that doesn't talk to you? You go up to your washing machine. What's wrong with you? Why aren't you working?
See, and that's where I get excited, because you're absolutely right that reducing that workflow friction if I can use a large language model with all of its warts to get stuff done more efficiently
Yes.
and reasonably safe.
Yes.
Again, humans lie, machines may not give you the answer you want. There's a lot of potential there, and I'm excited for that because I see all these products and the studies being done that we're on the right track. It just needs those guardrails to make sure we get there in one piece.
Absolutely. All righty. Here we have the big tote board. Important, optional, optional. 3 I's, 3 O's. All right. No essential today. So some of you can play hooky if you want to. Michael, thank you so much for joining me today. It was a delight. I hope you had fun. Hope you'll come back again soon. Ankush, thank you. We have no announcements other than the fact of own your own intelligence. That's my advice to you. Do not forget it. Don't let the cloudalists take your brain. Bye for now. See you tomorrow.